But first tonight, I can reveal the 15 moderates in the Parliamentary Liberal Party will not accept dumping net zero entirely, and they're even threatening a divorce with the Nationals. Despite media reports this afternoon that the Liberal leadership group is leaning towards dumping net zero, a senior moderate source told me tonight that they would not agree to a position that precludes the words net zero. Asked about how the coalition can fight an election with two different positions between the Nationals and the Liberals, the senior moderate figure said this: "Two can play at the divorce game. We don't have to be married to the Nats. We're not going to be held to ransom. We have to win city seats. We hold 9 of 88 urban seats." The view of the Liberal leadership may indeed be leaning towards dropping net zero, but that's not reflected in the party room among moderates. And I can reveal that the majority of the moderate faction would agree to a negotiated position where the net zero aspiration is kept, but the timeline is pushed out beyond 2050. The sticking point here in the Liberal Party is over the technical term net zero. Now, most Conservatives in the Parliamentary Liberal Party view it as politically poisonous, but the moderates say it's a deal breaker. And from the calls I've made within the Liberal Party today, one thing is clear: their energy policy position is far from settled, and there's widespread criticism that the process has been a shambles. This is, as you know, causing immense division in the coalition, and it's seen its performance plummet in the polls. Now, look at the bigger picture here. Never has this country had worse federal leadership. Australians are paying record taxes. Cost of living is still soaring. Inflation is sticky thanks to high electricity costs, and hatred has been left unchecked. The Albanese government is vulnerable on so many fronts, yet it's not being held to account because the coalition is focusing on itself instead of those opposite. And this division is reflected in the catastrophic news poll results today, which has the coalition's primary vote at just 24%. This compares to the election result of 31.8%. And according to Newspoll, voters preferred Peter Dutton to Susan Lee. The reality is she's a leader on borrowed time. She won't still be the opposition leader at the next election, due in May 2028. Susan Lee is a seat warmer, while the Liberals work out their policies in a divisive and messy process that we're watching drag out over too many months. But while voters are abandoning the coalition, according to today's Newspoll results, they aren't turning to Labor, but to One Nation. Pauline Hanson's primary vote is now a record high of 15%, up from just 6.4% at the election. So the coalition is losing voters to One Nation, and this is a critical point. Labor's support hasn't increased since the election. It's remained stable at 36%. So just over a third of all Australians support Labor. The challenge for the coalition is to reposition itself as a mainstream party that appeals to both Conservatives, who are now leaning towards One Nation, and moderates who've been flirting with the Teals. Now, you look at how New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has been able to run a centrist government in his state. The Liberals need to do the same. Return to the middle, to what voters are worried about. And to appeal to Australians, they also need an inspiring leader with conviction, direction, and vision, with a clear path forward. And in my view, there may not be such a figure currently in the Australian Parliament, in either the Senate or the lower house. And to make matters worse, we've seen the Canberra Press Gallery swing in behind the Albanese government, attacking Susan Lee for every step she takes. The media were equally hostile towards former Liberal leaders John Howard, Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison. It's nothing new, but it means the opposition's messages need to be even sharper, even more brutal to cut through. The opposition could have, for instance, run a lethal scare campaign about the government's tax increases at the last campaign, but it didn't. The view was that Dutton at the time shouldn't go negative. Instead, we saw the Albanese government run a scare campaign against the opposition, claiming they'd dump Medicare. It was a lie. And as I told you last week, despite Albanese promising you'd only need your Medicare card and not a credit card when you went to the GP, well, that hasn't turned out to be true. And 1 in 10 Australians can't afford to pay for the medical care they need at all. From this issue to a variety of others, Australia has never been in worse shape. We're paying record levels of tax. There's record government spending and they're racking up record debt levels. But there's no pressure on Labor to perform better for Australians. And the Prime Minister has become cocky, all because the coalition is a shambles. Now, Scott Morrison, as a former Prime Minister, applies a historical lens here. And he says there's no need to panic. This is the normal, difficult process after a crushing defeat. And he makes the comparison to the Liberal soul-searching that took place after Kevin Rudd's landslide win in 2007.
But it is important that they do work it out and that they come together. And I think they know that. I remember back between 2007 and 2013, we were in opposition. Got pretty messy back then too. You'll recall you were there too, Sharri. But, we worked it out. We came together. We got unified and we ended that government, the Labor government. Well, it can happen again.
And it's a fair point. But in the meantime, Albanese is getting away with murder. Egregiously, he even blamed the coalition for high energy prices this morning.
What has occurred on power prices is the product, in part, of the dysfunction and chaos that's been there of the coalition. 24 out of 28 coal-fired power stations announced their closure. They had no plan to do anything other than fight each other, and that's continuing today.
Or maybe Albanese has got a seriously bad case of jet lag. Someone needs to remind him that he's the Prime Minister and he's been the Prime Minister for 4 years now. And he won that 2022 election because he promised electricity bills would come down by $275. It's a bit rich to try to blame the depleted opposition for the soaring energy prices. And then in an interview with The Australian today, Albanese claimed the entire world was looking for leadership in the area of banning social media for young people. And he says he personally was the one to provide this global leadership. I mean, this is so cringeworthy. He says, and I quote, "I don't see it as my legacy. I see it as Australia's legacy. This is genuinely something as well that has come up from the grassroots, come up from parents who've lost their sons and daughters. It's something that, we didn't take to the 2022 election." So Albanese does admit that he didn't take the social media ban policy to the 2022 election, but he conveniently forgets that it was Peter Dutton and David Coleman's policy idea that they announced and Labor subsequently adopted under pressure. Now, Albanese didn't take it to the 2022 election because Dutton came up with a policy idea at this press conference on June the 13th, 2024.
The path that we're proposing now, and that is that there is age verification in place, that we don't allow young, impressionable minds onto social media without any guardrails.
But Albanese ignores the reality, ignores Dutton's press conference, and he takes full credit for the social media ban, pretending it was all his idea. Now, oh no, it won't be his legacy, it'll be Australia's legacy. And he wants it to be his legacy because The Voice didn't work out so well for him. I mean, do these politicians believe their own hyperbole? Well, without an effective opposition pointing out the lies and the spin, perhaps Australians with short memories will believe Albanese is a world-leading visionary. And it's all the coalition's fault, not Chris Bowen's, that we're paying higher electricity bills.